One of the most visited show gardens at Chelsea this year has a Caribbean concept. Last year, John Murdoch built his garden around a tree house. His Chattel House garden this year has roots deep in the culture and history of Barbados. Here's Wesley Kerr.
There's nothing typical about Barbados, the furthest east in the Caribbean, still quite British, and the most densely populated rural society. It's easy to see why this ravishing moulded landscape with cascading earth and plant colours framed by ocean and sky has inspired a garden 4,000 miles away. The rainforest was felled centuries ago, replaced first by slave plantation agriculture. Then the people colonised their island with thousands of little gardens or yards and a homestead particular to Barbados, the Chattel House. When he began to create his second show garden for Chelsea, designer John Murdoch recalled his teenage years spent on the island. So does this bring back happy memories, John?
It certainly does. 30 years ago, I used to cycle through these streets amongst these little houses on the way home from school. And 3 years ago, I came back as a landscape architect with a professional eye. And I thought, well, what wonderful buildings they really are. And thought, let's bring them to Chelsea. They have a great architectural lineage stemming back from the 17th century. The Georgian detailing of the windows, the soft pastel colours which work so well in the Caribbean. They're such wonderful little buildings. Well, this is a superb example of a traditional Bajan chattel house.
So is this the sort of thing then?
Yes, it is. Yeah, and this is almost identical to the one that we'll be building at Chelsea. It's got the veranda, it's got the traditional banister with the Cross of St Andrew lattice work in it, which is very similar to the old colonial houses. It's got the wonderful louver windows, a fantastic roof, very steep pitches that can deflect the hurricanes. And I bet you around the corner we'll probably find the high vents, which is another typical feature of the traditional chattel houses.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
There we have. That was put there to let the hot air rise out of the building and keep it cool.
Well, some people would think that it's not that special, but why is it so special to you?
Well, it just stirs back memories I've had as a kid living overseas. It just typifies everything, which I think is fantastic about Barbados. You never find it anywhere else in the world apart from Chelsea.
A chattel is a movable possession, and these precious homes were often the only big thing belonging to the owner. Their design owes a lot to conditions after slavery was abolished in the 1830s. Ex-slaves were rarely allowed to own property, so they built what were in effect the first mobile homes. You could add rooms to them, and when your employment ended, you could literally move the house.
I was brought up in what is basically a chattel house. And the chattel house form, which is a specific form unique to Barbados, evolved in the early 19th century, but then really developed after emancipation. After slavery ended, and emancipation then freed a group of people who originally had lived in slave quarters next to the plantation Great House. They were then moved to the perimeter of the plantation where they were rented land. So you didn't have a permanent stake on the land. You could have been moved at the whim of the landowner. People would have very small gardens in front, and to the side usually they'd plant a pigeon pea tree, or perhaps in the back they'd plant a fruit tree, breadfruit. It was the Barbadian's castle. However tiny, it was where the Barbadian could say, this is mine, this is where I live, this is a projection of my personality, this is me.
John Murdoch's Chelsea garden is influenced by both ends of the old colonial hierarchy. The late Tory Prime Minister Anthony Eden owned this mansion Villa Nova, and its 6.5 acres of garden are a lavish example of tropical planting.
The big challenge for us really is to bring the character of the tropical plants back to England using subtropical species which are hardy enough to withstand the rigours of the English winters. The fantastic thing about tropical landscape is that it's a wall of landscape. You've got the understory, you've got the middle story, and you've got the canopy. And then we've got the palm trees which burst through the top of the canopy like starbursts above the horizon line. Well, here we've got a fantastic example of this philodendron growing up the trunk of the palm, and we're going to try and replicate that effect at Chelsea using climbers climbing up our palm trees.
This is rather beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a fantastic lily, and we'll be replacing this with an allium at Chelsea. And here we've got the vivid colour of the bougainvillea, which we're replacing with the azaleas at Chelsea with a bright crimson flower. Even the former is very similar to the azaleas as well.
And the right time of year for azalea.
Perfect time of year for Chelsea.
These days, Bajans garden for pleasure and build solid homes rather than wooden ones. Some of the old chattel houses are now being demolished, as many of these icons of Barbados disappear. For 1 week at least, the Chattel House will occupy centre stage at Chelsea.
Welcome to the Chattel House garden, Alan.
Thank you. You know, you get used to seeing these colours in the Caribbean, but when you see them in SW3, it doesn't half zing, doesn't it?
The sugar almond colours are marvellous here.
Particularly against the rather leaden sky. You've got on either side of it, though, some stunning palms. These are absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, these are very special shamrops. They're over 110 years old, these boys. So they're very, very special.
And over there, now there's a trick. If the tender to your boat springs a leak, don't throw it away, cut half of it out, stick cushions on it and turn it into a swing seat.
That's right. Well, these are actually themed on the Grenadian bum boats, and we thought, well, what a great idea to actually convert them into proper swing seats. So we've got them here at Chelsea.
Because if you're a fan of Gilbert and Sullivan, you'll know in HMS Pinafore that Little Buttercoat was a bum boat woman who used to come to and from the big ship with all her trinkets and stuff.
That's right, yes.
But this is something else. Having just lost the shed at my old house because I've moved, this is a nice little pavilion in which to work, isn't it?
Fantastic, isn't it?
Now, gather you're making these now and people can actually buy them.
Yeah, we've taken 2 years to evolve this little building into a very intelligent garden building. We've got the basic chattel house, and then you've got the options of the deck and the veranda, and a storage pod in the back.
Bolt on a veranda.
It's all bolt-on, very modular.
Concrete base and all that?
No, we've devised this self-leveling leg system, so you don't need a concrete base, and it's off the ground, so you can use the storage underneath the chattel house for your ladders and bits of timber and bits and pieces of...
So like a real chattel house, then you could actually take this up and move it when you go?
We've designed it very faithfully to the tradition of chattel houses, which is one of the earlier mobile homes. So this can be taken down and moved anywhere else in the garden, or if you move house, take it with you.
Well, it's wonderful because, you see, for about 8,000 quid then, which is the price of a Barbadian holiday for two, you don't need to go there. You can buy one of these. It'll last you much longer than a fortnight. Ah, they're not listening. Never mind. For those of you who are staying at home, Rachel de Thames has been looking at other ways of bringing sunshine destinations into your own backyard.